Welcome to CCTV, Town Meeting Television. I am so honored to be here today with former Mayor Kristine Lott of Winooski. You still get to hold the honorary title.
The title
Mayor.
goes on, yeah.
We're going to jump, it's 2025, but we're going to jump back to 2019 when we had then newly elected Mayor Lott in the studio. And we're going to watch a clip of your very first
an exciting guest joining Lauren Glenn Davidian, the new mayor for the city of Winooski.
Kristine Lott, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So tell us about what contributed to your win as the new Winooski mayor.
Since the new year, I have gone out every single day, knocking on doors, attending events, hosting my own events, and just really spent a ton of time connecting with people, listening, and having that FaceTime. I think that's something that people are craving in Winooski, more outreach from the leadership, more connection. And so I think approaching the campaign that way really succeeded because that's what people want to see for our city.
Are you pretty satisfied with the outcome of the ballot questions that all seem to have passed in the city?
I am. I think that all of those ballot items get us toward the vision of what we've been putting together through community engagement and the planning, the master plan. Sorry, I'm a little nervous from earlier.
And you're tired, I'm
I
sure.
am very tired. Like all of these ballot items get us to that vision that we've been working towards for the last several years. And particularly, we're going to be able to build out the downtown fully at this point with the hotel and the garage. So I am excited that the items made it through and we can continue moving forward with that stuff.
And what are your priorities as mayor?
Community engagement is my number one priority, and doing more outreach and making sure to engage residents more in the process. I heard a lot of people say they feel left out or left behind. That's something I really want to address. And given the amount of work that we put on our plate at this point, I think that we don't need to be looking for the next project to take on or the next thing to do. I think it's a great opportunity to take a look at the process we use and do better there.
And one of the themes during the campaigns of everyone that ran was keeping the momentum of the work going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been on this path for several years now as a city, and with these new projects that we're taking on, we continue on that trajectory of seeing Winooski grow and thrive.
And there are going to be some new city councilors, 3 new city councilors. So Trevor Mack did not win. Corey Mack, sorry. Corey Mack was defeated by Mike Myers.
Yes, that's right.
And then Amy Lafayette, and there was one other
Jim Duncan.
Jim Duncan.
Yeah.
There were 2 seats.
Yeah.
So they won those.
All 4 of them were great. I'd be happy to work with any of them, and the outcome is fine with me. I'm looking forward to working with all of them to, move us forward on this path. And I'm looking forward to helping them learn as new members of the council, as I recently was myself.
Yeah, so it's a lot of new blood.
A lot of new blood. Hal and I both joined last year, and the other 3 will be new. Luckily, we have an excellent city manager and staff to lean on, and we'll get a lot of support there.
Well, Kristine Lott, congratulations, the mayor of Winooski. Thanks for watching.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Kristine Lott, it has a wonderful sound to it.
So
don't
6
you
years
think?
ago.
Yeah.
I'm sure she thinks so as well.
What do you
Congratulations to
reflect on when you look at that clip?
Well, the first thing that stood out to me was that is when we voted on the hotel and garage that are still currently in construction.
Yeah.
I think we had taken Main Street votes shortly before that. It takes a long time to get some of this big work done. The second thing that stood out is what I said about my priority for process and community engagement. I was really excited. I remember that being a priority, but I was really excited to see that clip, that is the number one thing I was focused on, because I do think we've come a long way there. And not just myself, right, but like with city staff and the other folks serving on council, we have definitely done more. Deepened connections in the community, added more formal process to making sure we're doing more outreach and getting more people involved in planning and decision making.
What does that look like? When I look at that, the turnout on that election, right, there were, I think it was around 500 to 600, give or take a few votes.
Yeah, Well,
Seems like a low turnout for a mayoral election in a city. And I think the turnout may be bigger now. I'm not sure.
it fluctuates. It depends what's on the ballot. You know, our last town meeting day turnout was quite low, but there were no contested seats and there were no big items. People tend to really come out when there's something they're passionate about. The last general election was huge turnout, I think everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But the ballot and town meeting day aren't like the end all be all of when decisions are made or how things are happening. Both council and staff have developed basically a list of, you know, groups and people in the community that are real connectors that, you know, get out, talk to a lot of people. And so if we have, for example, when we were trying to figure out how to spend the American Rescue Plan Act money post-COVID, that federal grant funding we received, we were able to lean on those contacts to pull together like focus groups and invite people into, you know, the library, or we went to some of the senior housing, for example, to talk about, you know, here are different ways we could use it, and ask, like, what are your priorities? What's something you see we need to focus on in the community now? And we've been building off of that. We've actually worked with partners. So for example, we did a bike and pedestrian planning study, I think last year, around like traffic calming and things of that nature. And also the major bridge project that we're working on with Burlington and the state. Are the consultants that we've worked with there and like state partners have also been creating like intentional strategies to get out into the community, to go to the school, or invite in targeted language groups with interpreters, for example. And we're about to embark on an update of our comprehensive municipal plan, where we actually staff did, pulled together all of the information that we have been gathering from the community over the last several years through these targeted outreach efforts. So we have that foundation, and then we can focus in this upcoming process. What are we missing? Who haven't we still heard from? Or are there topics we haven't gotten enough information about? So we can be more strategic with folks' time and not be going to them over and over again saying, what do you want? What do you need? And then not taking action.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that. And you know, it's not lost on me that 2019, you're elected mayor, and then a year later, COVID hits. So we'll talk about that a little bit and the ARPA funds. But what's important to you about community engagement? Why is it important? And how have you seen that make a difference in the lives of people that your neighbors in Winooski?
It's, for me, I didn't come into the role with like an agenda or a plan. There was already a strong...
and it's important to know Winooski's mayoral election is nonpartisan.
That's right. Our whole council, our whole structure is designed to be nonpartisan.
Yeah.
We're all at large, just representing the community, right? Obviously, you come in with your experiences and your ideals, but for me, we had this master plan already in place, a lot of community input on that, projects already underway, right? Like, we're working towards this vision for thriving city, and I wanted to keep that going. And the community engagement is like a constant check on, are we doing the right things? Are we still aligned with what's needed here? Because people change. We actually have pretty high, transition in and out of our community, and the situation changes. We had a pandemic, other external factors. The change in the housing market in the time that I was serving is significant.
The Main Street project.
Main Street, yeah. And so there's just, you need to constantly be checking in and making sure you're still on the right path, I think. And that the decisions you're making are serving the community at large, but also smaller subgroups. So like I mentioned, the bike and pedestrian study earlier, we had a transportation master plan already in place that addressed a lot of like bike and pedestrian safety concerns, et cetera. But there wasn't enough information around accessibility, for example. So there was some targeted outreach on ADA planning for Americans with Disabilities Act. And we also had seen, like in previous planning and outreach efforts, not enough connection with our multilingual community, with the refugee resettlement community. And so speaking with them more, I know when I first came into the role, this is where we started to surface that while Winooski has, and historically and continues to have, a higher share of affordable housing than the rest of the county, it still wasn't meeting the needs of certain groups. So like these larger families who were coming into the community couldn't find large enough units. And so this is where community engagement is so important, to get to these different details and different experiences that are happening, because you need to serve different parts of the population in different ways. And you can't know that unless you're really actively inviting that input and trying to understand the experiences of as many of your residents as you can.
Yeah. Which brings me to thinking about the impact of form-based code, which kind of helps determine some parameters around development.
Yeah.
And how does that interface? What's been your experience with form-based code in Winooski? Some people call that the valley that you drive through. Some people love it. Some people are like, this is interesting. It's new.
Yes.
What's been your experience? Because that came to...
It was adopted right before I started serving. Okay. I did not know much about it at the time. So form-based code is basing your land use on the form. Like, what do we want it to look like in this area? Less than the use. And so along our gateways, Main Street, East Allen, and Mallets Bay Avenue, that's where we have this implemented. And the goal was to create more density in those areas while still having lower density in our neighborhoods, so that we could add housing and commercial activity. And so you can do residential, you can do commercial, it's like a mixed use along those areas. But that it needs to conform to a certain look and feel to keep the, I would say like the pedestrian scale, like we want density in these areas, but we also want people to be able to like walk through and enjoy their kind of urban neighborhood setup, or patronize the businesses along the route and not feel like it's just a fast vehicle pass through.
Yeah.
The other benefit is...
There are a lot of cars that pass through Winooski.
Yes, one of the busiest areas in the state. The other benefit to form-based code is it moves a lot of the permitting to like an administrative process. It's predictable. It's easier for developers to understand what they're getting into. It saves them time and money. And so it has spurred development in the areas where we have that type of zoning. And so we've seen... I think the Regional Planning Commission cited that over the past 5 years, Winooski has had the highest housing production, or like increase in housing units per capita for the county. And I think form-based code has had a lot to do with that, because it's easier to build in Winooski. Like, we've invited it.
And does that meet the needs? Is that meeting the needs that Winooski, like that you just spoke about?
Not quite. So we've been tackling that. I do want to be clear, though. The form-based code was adopted in 2018, I want to say, around there.
Okay.
We have seen redevelopment, particularly along East Allen Street, but a lot of these parcels still haven't redeveloped. So there is a lot of room still for growth. And I think Main Street will spur some of that, right? Like upgrading the infrastructure to support that development is part of why we initiated that project to begin with. So we haven't seen it play out yet. The piece that has been missing or difficult is with the larger family-sized housing. The free market is just not creating like a 3-4 bedroom units, because the demand isn't there and it financially isn't that profitable. Mm-hmm. So we have been tinkering with the regulations, adding in incentives to try to reduce the cost so that developers would want to create this type of housing, and have frankly been more successful in partnering with nonprofit housing providers. So we've worked with Champlain Housing Trust to create some 3-bedroom ownership opportunity on Mounts Bay Avenue. We're working with them right now to try to do it. Yes,
Yep.
yeah. And now we're in the process of working with them on turning the old Armory property into that type of housing, affordable, larger units. And then the council just adopted an inclusionary zoning policy so that all large developments, so 20 units or more, have to do, I want to say it's 25% or 20%? Not quite sure, but a certain amount of units have to be affordable.
Yeah, that's interesting, because Burlington sort of struggled with that and, sort of pushed some of their inclusionary zoning units outside of the city, made some. What went into that process and that thinking?
We actually have sort of had default inclusionary zoning in a lot of the city because of the downtown Act 250 permit that has a requirement and is a big chunk of our developable area. Along the gateways, we've had some incentives for that. And what we've also seen is private developers can get more federal funding if they do affordable. And so actually a lot of what has been built in the last several years has been affordable housing or has included some amount of affordable housing because it helps, because these federal funds have had that requirement on them. Yeah. So when staff consulted some of the developers who do work in Winooski, they said, basically like we're already operating in this model, so we don't think it's going to be a barrier to more housing, but we hope it will ensure that we continue to add that type of housing.
Yeah. So 2019, you come in, a year later, COVID hits. First of all, just tell me what that was like in terms of challenging your own leadership. You come in, it sounds like, as a nonpartisan mayor. I want to work with everybody. You say in the clip, I'm going to get along with all of the, whoever is elected, we're going to get along. What kind of leadership challenges did you face in March of 2020?
Well, so I had only been on the council for a year when I was elected to be mayor, and had like 1 year and a week maybe of time in the role before COVID. Very much still learning, and thankfully leaning on a very experienced city manager. I think that is one thing that works very well for.
Was that Paul Sarn at that time, or was
the city manager was Jesse Baker.
Jesse Baker, that's right, of course.
So we have a council manager form of government. It's opposite of Burlington, right, where the mayor is really like the chief in charge.
Yeah.
In our town and most other smaller ones, I would say, mayor is leading the council and policy, and there's a professional city manager that's running the show with staff and operations.
Yeah.
I think that worked out really well. More minds are more productive, more ideas, and having a professional with that background in city government, she very much was someone I could look to for learning and lean on as I was getting to know the role. But when the pandemic came in, just unprecedented. Even all of our professionals didn't know, nobody had seen this before. And so we actually ended up pulling together like a weekly, we were calling it a huddle, so like the city manager had reached out to other neighboring staff. We had invited folks from the Department of Health, some folks within our community, to just talk about like, what are we seeing? What do we need to react to? Are we seeing things that are working? It was just very, a creative space, I would say, like very much just like trying to figure out what do we need to do right now when we have never done this before.
Yeah.
And I think we were pretty effective in that. And coming back to like the nonpartisan thing, I've been grateful that the folks that I've served with on council, for the most part, also operate in that way. Like, we're there to address Winooski issues, what's happening locally that we need to do that only we can do in local government. And I think when we stay focused on that and what's the outcome we're trying to achieve together, it's easier to work together and navigate, like, how do we get there, rather than getting hung up on what's the right way to do this, or what's the Democratic or Republican way to do this.
And I mean, in a leadership role, you're often just, you're setting a tone for folks.
Yeah.
You're modeling how to respond. How have you felt like that has changed from 2019 to today?
I think that's actually really important and a big part of the role. I think for me, and I saw this modeled by my predecessors as well, like, being the mayor is really facilitating and getting this group of decision makers to work together productively towards, whatever outcome we're trying to achieve. And setting that tone of, like, we are working together respectfully, we are staying focused on whatever, the issues are at hand, has been helpful to make sure we can be productive and make the decisions we need to. And I think has also served us, like, modeling for the community, because I don't feel the level of division in Winooski that I feel on the national scale, like online or on TV, et cetera. And I think that is one of the great things about local government and like any work we do at the local level, right? You're with people in real life, seeing them face to face. You appreciate that they are also humans. And you can maintain a level of respect.
So COVID comes, ARPA money, you're responding. Tell us just a little bit, without getting too weedy, how did you as mayor and how did Winooski respond?
Oh man, there was so much. Well, I will say we very much appreciated state support throughout that time. We don't have a health department or any of that staff expertise, et cetera. So,
and Winooski was the site of one of the first public outbreaks, and the state learned a lot in that process about not demonizing certain populations and being able to support and talk about outbreaks.
Yeah, so this is where that weekly huddle call came in handy, because we had folks from the state and the health department in those discussions, and so we were able to react and respond in real time. They brought testing on site and later vaccinations right into the community. It's hard we have a lot of folks who don't drive, for example, so trying to keep things accessible. So first, there was the health aspects and dealing with containment or reducing spread. And then once ARPA funding came out, it was more trying to find out from the community, how has this impacted us? And so what do we want to use these funds for? So we ended up, after doing some community engagement on that, we opened a grant application basically for some of it. For example, our food shelf applied and received some of the funding to fix some problems with their building, because there's a lot more patronage happening there. So there were a couple of sort of service providers in the area that we helped give some more resources to, because we knew our community members were using them. And then one of the other themes was around just connection, folks feeling isolated for so long, wanting more connection in the community. We did end up funding some expansion of community services and recreation programming, some more stuff at the senior center, and then eventually investing the remaining balance to earn interest so we could keep bringing some new revenue into the city.
Are there lessons that you learned? I think back, you had Ray Coffey, who works in city government.
Community services.
Yeah, community services, and he, he's been part of the task force and working with Vermont Language Justice Project around. Winooski's been a leader, I would say, from the beginning in translating information into multiple languages, using videos and other methods. Were there lessons that you learned that coming into this job that you're like, I'm going to take this forward? Were there difficult lessons that were harder for you to learn along the way?
I think, so a couple of things that come to mind. One is like you have to go out in person. So we talk about like language access. Getting into those communities and meeting folks in person and building that relationship is how you then build trust or are able to connect with them later. So like the video translation work, and I know CCTV is engaged in that as well. We discovered like a lot of folks couldn't read translated documents, and so the videos were more useful. And a bigger part of that is having multiple ways to access information, not even just with language. There are native English speakers who have trouble with reading, or the level of language that we're producing documents in is like too technical, for example.
Yeah, TIF. Anytime somebody says TIF, tax increment financing, I'm like,
yeah, avoiding acronyms, using more plain language, going to community events or spaces rather than expecting people to come into City Hall or come to a formal meeting. And so that community outreach piece, you have to be attacking that from various formats. But another big lesson is within city government, within like staff leadership and the council, that communication is just so important. If we are all talking frequently, we can stay on the same page and keep moving forward together. If we're just showing up twice a month at a meeting with an agenda, people are not on the same page. There's information missing. It becomes much harder to get things done. So this was actually something I shared at my final meeting on Monday, was sort of some lessons learned. And the number one is just like communication all around is the most important part of leadership, frankly. We, during my time, expanded. So there was a school newsletter that gets mailed to every household in the city. That's sort of become more of a community newsletter, like the city expanded its footprint in there, so we can share more information that way. I started doing, during the pandemic, front porch forum post every week or every other week with, sort of what's going on at the city, just to get more information out there. And I know it's been appreciated. I've had people reach out and they just feel like they have a better sense of what's going on. Yeah. Actually, coming back to, you mentioned earlier about voter turnout. So our last town meeting day was pretty low turnout. Yeah. I talked to somebody afterwards who said, well, I didn't really feel like I needed to vote on anything. The city's in good hands. You guys are making the right decisions. Yeah. And so they didn't feel compelled. Yeah. Which was interesting to me, but I guess a little reassuring in some sense.
Yeah. Have you found that your own personal views have evolved in this process? Have you had your mind changed around?
Yeah. I have definitely shifted around on, development, for example. Trying to walk this line of creating the development that we need, so both housing and commercial, to support the community. I think when I started out, I had that sort of pro-housing mindset, like the demand isn't meeting the supply, or the supply isn't meeting the demand. Mm-hmm. We need more housing, that's how we bring costs down. And I've seen over time that it's not that clear cut. And there's more nuance like I was talking about, there's certain types of housing we specifically need, and how do we get there? And I think this is true in many areas. Like, there's more nuance, it's more complex. Whatever you think out of the box is probably not the full picture, and it's really important to be in conversation with people of different viewpoints, or bringing in different expertise to get as much information as you can before you say, like, this is the right thing or not.
Is this sort of like saying that the political process should be involved, not just free market decision making? Is that one way of thinking about it, or am I oversimplifying it?
Well, I think it's more like, it's if you're not in it all the time, or if you're not in the weeds and the details of the process, like, as an outsider, I'll hear from residents who are upset that their neighborhood, it abuts one of the gateways, and so like a big building goes in, and they feel like, this is changing the quality of my neighborhood. But what they're not grasping in the full picture is that if we don't add more housing, we're going to continue to see worse and worse problems with vagrancy and panhandling, for example, or reduced population in our school district, which increases costs, or no new growth to offset inflation against the services we're providing. So, like, everything is just sort of interconnected, and I think you can't come in with a preset opinion and try to stick to that. You need to be open to hearing new information and seeing how that might shift to figure out the best course of action. At the same time, you never have all the information, you never have all the data, you can never make a perfect decision that preempts any unknowns, and you have to be willing to accept that too. Like, I've made the best decision I can with the information I have. A year from now, I'm going to find out there was a flaw. We'll address it again.
Yep.
It's a moving target.
Yeah. You've alluded to it a little bit, but maybe just some of the highlights from your time as mayor, some of the highlights that you want to accomplish that either you feel like you had a hand in or that happened under your leadership.
Well, I would say the biggest highlight is like personal, like people reaching out to me that I have personally affected. I've had so many members of our community say they had like never met a mayor, they didn't know we had one. I think that's the impact of the outreach piece, folks feeling more involved. Keeping the Main Street project going, the pandemic threw some curves there. Same with the hotel and garage project that's going on.
Yeah, I don't envy you. I mean, that must be so hard to just keep.
Costs have increased. We've had to make some strategic shifts, but so keeping these projects moving forward has been quite a bit of work. The work that we are embarking on with the Armory, with Champlain Housing Trust to build some affordable family housing at the Armory, that came out of a group that I had pulled together around housing issues with some community members and some partners in the city to try to attack these specific issues. And something that was very much behind the scenes, the education finance reform. So a couple years ago, the legislature updated the student weight calculation that brought a lot of necessary resources into Winooski. I was very involved in that advocacy as well. That was definitely a huge effort, right? Like a ton of people involved. But I did play a role in that I'm proud of too, because we really needed more resources for our students, and it also reduces some of the direct expense burden on our residents.
So Thomas Renner, so you're stepping down as mayor, you've already stepped down as mayor. Thomas Renner, the deputy mayor, is filling in the position. And then who is taking over his seat? Has that been decided yet?
No, we're in the process of soliciting applications from the community. and then the council is going to appoint somebody to fill in.
Until March.
Yeah, so until March. And we'll see in January who runs for the remaining year of the mayor term and the presumably open seat on council as well.
Yeah. So what, in this short period of time, what are you leaving to the next mayor, Thomas, in the short term? What is left on the table that you're like, here you go?
Well, so the annual budgeting process is coming up, starting real soon. That's big, that's important.
And that's going to be, Elaine will be a big part of that,
Yeah.
shepherding that. Yeah.
Yeah, and this council has been in place for a couple of years now, so they know what they're doing. There'll be one new person at the table. The 8-year update to the comprehensive municipal plan is starting.
What does that mean?
So we were calling it, it's previously been known as the master plan, now it's the comprehensive plan. Excuse me, so the state requires you to have one, and it gives you access to funds and other supports. But this is really like the goals, like what do we want the city to look like, how do we get there? The plan is sort of what drove Main Street, form-based code, kind of all of the projects that we work on come out of that, because this is the sort of the vision the community has set, and these are the goals we're trying to achieve.
So if this one is due.
We have about a year to do the update.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they're good for 8 years. You want to refresh them anyway, just to see what's changed.
So you came in
At the beginning of the old
the
one.
beginning of the old one that had already been established, and you're leaving before the next one is
That's right.
started.
Yeah.
Interesting. So so you could participate as a
resident
as a
this time.
resident.
Yeah. There's that. We got to finish the hotel and parking garage project. Main Street. I mean, Main Street is pretty much, it's close.
Yeah. 2027.
Yeah, but next year won't be like this year.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot easier to drive through.
Yeah.
And then keeping things on track with the state with the bridge project.
This is the replacement of the bridge over the Winooski.
That's
It's gonna
right.
sort of shift a little bit, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Wider lanes,
Some bike.
much wider bike and pedestrian path protected.
Yeah.
And some improvements on the Burlington side for that intersection. And we're also going to get a signal installed at East Allen, Hood Street, and East Spring Street, which is right now it's a weird intersection by the railroad. So it'll be part of the detour when the state's working on that project. So traffic signal will help ensure people can actually get through that area. And then I think the other important thing is we've made a lot of changes to zoning of late, and done a lot of work on housing. And I would anticipate, over the next year or two, monitoring to see how that plays out. Is it doing what we want? Are we starting to see a housing landscape that is shifting towards what we want?
What are you going to miss about this position? I mean, people are going to still come up to you and say, I saw Mayor Norfolk the other day.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw people just walking in, hello, Mayor, hello, Mayor.
It was a while
so
ago.
Imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was, 1990s. Yeah.
I will miss, it is rewarding, like I said, when somebody tells you, like, you made an impact for them personally. I'll miss that. I also really enjoy being able to kind of pull together the right people and resources. So, for example, with Main Street, there's been a lot of impact on our business community. And through some outreach I did with the state, we were able to secure some grant funding to help with that. Like, being able to do that, to persuade or bring the right people to the table to make something happen for the community, I really enjoy that. And I do enjoy running the meetings for the most part when they're going well.
Yeah.
And when I can help facilitate getting the group to a decision, even if it's difficult, like being able to bring everyone together towards a common and shared purpose is pretty rewarding.
Yeah. And what's next for you?
I am not sure. I'm having my first child in less than 3 months. And
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, I'm very much focused on preparing for, it's going to be a huge life transition for me and my husband.
And a different way to experience Winooski.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be focused on that, give myself some time, give my family some time to adjust, and then I suspect I will be active again at some point in the future. I do really enjoy public service.
Yeah. Cool. Interesting. So you might run for another position.
I don't know. We'll see. I'll probably just like volunteer first.
Are you announcing here you're running for governor?
I am not making that announcement.
You didn't hear it here first. Well, is there anything else that you want to share before we close up?
I would just say it has been such a pleasure to serve my community. I'm really grateful for, everyone that I've worked with, be it volunteers, staff, or just like really dedicated residents. I love Winooski. I know it's in good hands moving forward. We have a really strong community full of dedicated people. And
yeah, you have a great staff. There's great staff. With, by you, meaning the City of Winooski.
Yeah,
It's great staff and great council. And
it's been an honor, and I hope, I would encourage more people to consider volunteering in public service. It is incredibly rewarding, and you really can make a difference locally more than you think. If you're one of those folks who feels like, my one vote doesn't mean anything, you can get in at the ground level, and you really can get a lot done.
yeah, well, if you look at the vote count on that clip, that's another example. It's like, oh yeah, really, that's a small turnout. You really can shift the election. And when it's close, it was between you and Eric Covey at that time, and two great people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your support over the years of CCTV. One thing that we didn't mention was the cool project that you did engage with recently with the CCTV archives. And if folks haven't seen it, we have footage of the enduro race in Barrie that Jordan Mott drove the car in, and you painted the hood to support the CCTV archives.
Yeah. My husband drives in the Thunder Road demo enduro every year, and we did it up with CCTV archives. A little bit of promotion. It's a fun event.
Yeah, that was great. But thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for your service over the years, and you can keep watching this and other programming at cctv.org, and be well.
Thank you.